This video follows on from the video Changing Your VAT Scheme General and covers a scenario changing from cash to standard. Now the first thing you need to do is to go into your accounting option, then select VAT, then VAT period. What we're going to do today is we're going to change this period here, 1st of May 2013 to 31st of July 2013, from cash to standard. To change the accounting period from cash to standard, first of all, you need to make sure that there are no transactions in the period that you're about to change, and you can actually tell this by the presence of the chevron here. So if the chevron is appearing, it means you can change your scheme from one to another. It means there's no transactions, so all you need to do is click on the chevron and then choose standard and then save. Now, with other scenarios, it's pretty much as simple as that, but when you change from cash to standard, you do need to consider the implications on the invoices that you have, both customer invoices and supplier invoices, which have not been paid or fully paid. What needs to happen is you will need to review those invoices, because technically those invoices should now be returned in the next VAT period. So remember, before, under the cash basis, the invoices were returned in the period in which they were paid, but now you've changed to standard, so the invoices are returnable on the date they were invoiced. However, on that date, the scheme basis was cash, so what you need to do now is adjust Amanda to make sure that those invoices will be taken care of. The easiest way to do this is, first of all, we'll look at the customers. So go into the accounting menu, select customers, and from the invoice menu, select customer invoice list. Now, by default, this list will open up showing all invoices that are still open. And as you can see from the figures down here, these invoices are either partially paid or completely unpaid. And this is what we need to look at. So, for example, with this invoice here, I'm going to drill down, and the first thing I'm going to do with this invoice is I'm going to set it to draft, because I can't amend it unless it is set to draft. So if you need to do this, you need to make sure that you have the access rights to be able to make these changes. First of all, I'm going to set it to draft. Then I'm going to go into the parameters tab, and there I'm going to change VAT period to the next period. So when I validate this, this means now that this particular invoice will now be included on the VAT return for the next period. So in fact, if I now go onto the VAT period screen, and if I click onto the detail option, you can see there's invoice number 24. That will now be included on the next return that you submit for the standard period. That's the way you would deal with invoices that haven't been paid at all. Now we're going to look at what you need to do if the invoice is partly paid. So if I go back to the customer invoice list, and we'll look at this one here, SI005. The first thing we need to do with this one is to drill down into it and make a note of the date that the payment was made. So this was made on the 27th of February 2013 for the sum of £56, and it's sales receipt 0043. So we're going to close that, and what we're going to do first of all, we're going to go to the accounting customers receipts receipt list, and we're going to find the payment for that particular invoice. And that was sales receipt 0043. Now remember, if you have a huge long list and you can't spot it as easy as I have done there, if you make a note of the number, you can use the find facility. I'm using Google Chrome, so it's pretty straightforward. If I do find, I can then enter that number and Amanda will find it for you via the browser. So we don't need to do that because it's there. So let's just press escape. On the receipts list, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to draft, and then I'm going to tick in here, I'm going to move it down into the outstanding invoice area, and then I am going to press save. Now if I then go back to the customer invoice, you will see now that what's happened there is the plum coloured indicator has gone, and the invoice is now showing with the blue validated icon, and that means that it, as far as Amanda's concerned, this invoice is unpaid. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click into the invoice, and I am going to change the amount. So first of all, I'm going to set it into draft, I'm going to change the net amount to £46.67 and the VAT amount to £9.33. It's calculated it correctly, and you can see the total is now £56. So I'm now going to save that, and I am going to enter a receipt. So I'm now going to validate that record, and now I'm going to go into the receipt tab, and I am going to enter the payment that we've already received. And I'm going to make sure that I'm doing it on the correct day, which was 27.02.2013, and the amount was £56. So I can now save that, and you can see that the invoice is now locked. If we now go back to the customer invoice list, we will see that that invoice is no longer appearing as a partially paid invoice. So what we've basically done there is we've taken the invoice, we've reduced it to the amount that's actually been paid, and then we've recorded the payment again on the correct date. So what this means is that it will match what you returned to HMRC for that VAT quarter. Now what you need to do is decide what you want to do about that remaining amount, which was the £11.20. Now what you could have done, actually, you could have, on the original receipt, you could have actually entered a deduction. So instead of reducing it to the amount that you've actually received, you could have entered a deduction, a balancing amount, and you could put your justification in here. Alternatively, you can just write it off completely, i.e. forget about it. Or what you can do is you can now do a new invoice, and we can enter the customer in here, FPG. We can put today's date. We can put, I think we'll make that included, it'll make it easier. So adjustment in respect of monies standing at the time of VAT period change, adjustment, and VAT code, quantity, unit price, £11.20, and then save that. So effectively what we've done now, we've raised a new invoice for the balancing amount because you still want to get that payment in. So what's going to happen now is this particular receipt will be included on the VAT period report. Oh, and of course we mustn't forget to validate it. So if we now go back to the VAT details report, and if I press refresh, we should see the extra amount has come in there, so that extra £1.87 of VAT will get accounted for, as will that outstanding purchase. So as you can see, this is quite a complex scenario, and I would advise that you only do so if you have discussed this with your accountant or bookkeeper. There are adjustments to be made, so do think carefully before you change your VAT scheme from cash to standard. Now, I would recommend that you use the resources that we have available in Amanda to help you with VAT. If you click on the help button, you will see under the videos section there are a number of VAT video guides already, and we will be increasing them over coming weeks and months, and definitely take a look at what's in there. And there is also a user guide which is in the accounting area called Understanding VAT in Amanda, and again, if you click on the link, the VAT guide will open up in PDF format, which means that you can print it, you can zoom, and this user guide covers all the aspects of VAT in Amanda. So whilst we've just very quickly covered one small aspect, I would recommend that you print off this guide or use this guide when you've got any questions about VAT, and also check what is in the video directory as well. Okay, thank you very much for watching.